Let's talk about hair as a non-binary individual who has alopecia and also has sensory issues. Hi, I'm Dee, my pronouns are they, them, I'm non-binary. I also have alopecia, and luckily right now I'm not going through an alopecia spike, but I'm also undiagnosed autistic / neurodivergent, so I get really bad sensory when my hair hits certain stages of length, such as the one it's in right now. On top of sensory overload, I also have gender dysphoria and body dysmorphia, and when my hair hits a certain level, I don't like her. She makes me uncomfortable.
What are you talking about? You do not deal with gender dysphoria. You're a biological female, looking like a woman. Voluntarily, I might add. What is this doing? Oh my god, I made it worse. You can't just claim that you deal with autism. And you probably don't deal with body dysmorphia either because you're comfortable showing yourself on TikTok, on the internet. Girl, stop diagnosing yourself. It's not productive.
But I am really trying my best to grow my hair out, to have long, luscious hair as a non-binary individual, because your hair length does not equal your gender identity.
But why does the length of your hair make you feel dysphoric? Why cut it?
But I'm struggling because I'm at that point where I want to cut my hair because it's touching places I don't like and it's just making me feel dysphoric.
You're not making sense. That's not dysphoria. If you as a biological female have dysphoria, your hair being this long instead of this long, it's not the issue. It's not going to be the most triggering thing in the world. It would be the pink hair, the feminine voice, female voice. It would be you looking and sounding like a woman.
As I said, I am non-binary and I also have gender dysphoria, and a lot of my dysphoria has always revolved around my hair. For as long as I can remember, my hair has been a huge part of me that makes me feel dysphoric, or a huge part of me that makes me feel good. If I'm having a good hair day, I'm going to have a good day in general. If my hair is not playing ball that day, I'm not going.
Having a bad hair day is not the same as feeling gender dysphoric. It's so offensive to think so. It would be the same as claiming wanting your kitchen table to look nice, clean, is a symptom of OCD. It's not.
A few years ago, I actually had my first ever alopecia spike. I have alopecia where I lose small patches of my hair. When it first happened, I was obviously so upset. I was so dysphoric. I hated how I looked, and it was just the worst experience ever.
According to you, your hair can make you feel dysphoric when it's too long. But here you're saying when your hair falls out, it makes you feel dysphoric too. Something doesn't add up.
When I had my next alopecia spike, it was bad. There was more patches than there had ever been before. At this time, I had just shaved my head for the very first time. I hated having a shaved head. I know some people love it. I hate it on myself. And then having alopecia on top of that, I had to hide my hair and my head quite a lot, so I wore a lot of hats and bandanas in this phase of my hair journey. I feel really dysphoric.
Wait a minute, I thought hair didn't define your gender. How's it even possible for you to feel dysphoric about your hair?
I didn't feel comfortable in who I was. I didn't feel like my hair aligned with my gender identity. Then luckily my hair started growing back and I decided I'm going to grow my hair out. And we are at this stage now from a shaved head in 2023. I absolutely love having a fringe. A fringe for me is so comforting. It feels so empowering, but it also feels so gender. I feel so non-binary with my fringe, and yes, I look like I work in Lush, but I love that.
Well, you do kind of look like a non-binary. Not because anyone can be non-binary, it's not really a thing, but all the people who identify as non-binary more or less look the same. So good job on that.
Being able to have pink hair just feels like such a moment for me as somebody who told themselves they wasn't allowed to have pink, they wasn't allowed to go near anything femme or girl coded because I was non-binary and I had to be androgynous. It feels amazing to be able to reclaim little girly things or things that are girl coded, such as this silly little thing that I'm obsessed with.
It sounds like you've had a very long debate in your own head with yourself. What does that have anything to do with reality, the definition of gender, man, woman, LGBT? You're making up your own rules. Why are you identifying as non-binary? No one is forcing you to. Again, you're having debates in your own head with yourself. Am I allowed to like pink? Am I not allowed to like pink? Is it gender affirming to be bald or to have long hair? Am I dysphoric about having long hair or short hair? It's all up in your head. It's so confusing, and it has nothing to do with gender dysphoria, which is a legit mental disorder. It's also quite easy to understand. People who don't deal with dysphoria will never know what it's like, and it's basically impossible for people like me to explain how it really feels. But most people understand the things transsexuals are dysphoric about. Most people understand that dysphoria is a whole package deal. Someone is not just dysphoric about one thing. The disorder is about someone feeling uncomfortable with anything related to their biological sex. I always use as an example my fingernails. If they get a little bit too long, I can feel a little bit dysphoric. I'm not even kidding. When I went on testosterone, people in my life understood. I didn't even need to explain it, that the next step would be to get top surgery, getting my breast removed. And after that surgery, people weren't surprised that I wanted to remove my female reproductive system. That I felt extremely uncomfortable mentally, psychologically, knowing that I had a uterus and ovaries. But with these fake trans people we see today, they're trying so hard to change the definition of trans. Not only that, they're making the new definition so confusing. Most normal people don't understand it at all. And that's because activists are wrong. And because the original definition of transsexualism didn't need to change. It wasn't necessary. A lot of people got it.
My hair started growing out and I decided, okay, how can I make it into a hairstyle that feels gender affirming, that feels non-binary, that feels neutral, that feels androgynous, that feels all these kind of things. And I've fallen on this haircut, a blunt front fringe with some little side pieces, a shaved undercut, and that's it. And I absolutely adore my hair at the moment. And of course I still have bad days. When I haven't dyed my hair, I still feel a bit bad. But on most days I absolutely love my hair. And I do love this blend of the girly pink with a front fringe, but then the harsh undercut. I just think it's the perfect non-binary haircut for me. I absolutely love it.
You care a lot about gender stereotypes, and that's coming from a tranny. You're talking about superficial stuff. Imagine how much better you would feel mentally if you said to yourself, I'm a woman, and there's not a limit on how many ways I could be a woman. I can be my authentic self, express myself however I want, and still be a woman. Imagine that for a moment. Wouldn't it make you feel relieved? Why do you have such an intolerant and narrow definition of what it means to be a woman, since you do whatever it takes to not identify as such? Why? Do you have a problem with women?
As I said before, hair length does not equal your gender identity, but I totally understand if you feel dysphoric about your hair length and don't feel yourself with your hair length.
You're literally contradicting yourself. If you think it's a good idea to lie to people to make them feel better, guess what? You can't be truly happy if you lie to yourself about what you are, who you are, and so on. You can't. Speaking from personal experience, I know now, today, what true happiness feels like after I stop lying to myself. The truth will always set you free. One thing is lying to yourself about what you are, who you are, what you struggle with, and what you don't struggle with. But giving other people advice while lying to them is not okay. That's how I feel about non-binary in general. The problem is not that some individual does not understand the concept of gender, that there's no such thing as being in between genders. You can either be a man or a woman. The real problem is the ones who are on TikTok influencing others to identify as non-binary. Gender fluid, gender fuck, agender, the list goes on and on. The real problem is telling others to refuse to accept themselves, but rather identify something that's not real and is based in sexism. Identifying as non-binary is literally a social contagion. Nowadays, the same as fake trans. Identifying as trans without dealing with gender dysphoria. It is a social contagion, and it worries me, especially because it affects mostly young people. You know, young people who are born into like a tolerant society in the West, who now are brainwashed into thinking that there's only one way to be a man and a woman, who are brainwashed into being sexists. When I say these young people are brainwashed into believing in sexist ideas, what I mean is they're being lied to. The QI+ movement, queer, trans activists are lying 24/7. She's lying about being autistic, gender dysphoric, non-binary, or like not a woman. What if she's also lying about having alopecia? That would be so effed up. If you think I'm being a little bit harsh here, this is what she's also most likely lying about. I'm 99% sure that she has never been to a trans kid's funeral. Even if we act like being a trans kid's a thing, she has not been to their funerals. I'm saying this because she's lying about there's a problem with trans kids unaliving themselves. It's a very famous but false narrative the trans community keeps pushing. The false narrative trans kids are unaliving themselves was created to emotionally blackmail politicians, doctors, therapists into medically transitioning children. What activists are trying to say is if you don't transition children with puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones, they're gonna unalive themselves and it'll be your fault. Just talking about it makes me so... Ugh. Where are the statistics that shows that there's an insanely huge rise in trans kids unaliving themselves, only due to them not receiving the medical transition? You can't find those statistics, can you? Well, that's because children do not in any way benefit from the medical transition. And I'm not talking about the kids who might end up regretting it as adults. Even the kids who go through a precocious puberty do not receive puberty blockers as much anymore. Due to what? It's this thing called side effects. There are way too many side effects, so doctors conclude that it's not worth giving puberty blockers to the children who actually need them. How is it then ethical to give puberty blockers to children who do not physically need the drugs? Do these serious side effects magically disappear just because the kid says, "I'm trans"? That's not how medicine works. Even if we talked about the children who will grow up and still feel gender dysphoric, will live their lives as transsexuals as adults, they shouldn't receive the medical transition either. They would, just like any other kid, get sterilized. Osteoporosis in their early 20s, underdeveloped genitals, atrophy in their genitals, lower IQ, brain swelling, depression, anxiety. Should I go on? No, let's not today. It's of course not worth it. It's not going to make the child feel better about their gender dysphoria. And it's also extremely unethical for adults to make that decision for the child. Let's all remember children can't consent, and I don't think we should change that. The last thing I want to say about why I think she's lying, about everything she says, is why promote yourself and your social media when you talk about dead children? I don't know about you, but I think it's inappropriate. This woman is so self-involved. I'm not going to say she's a narcissist because that's a real thing, and we shouldn't overuse that term. She has a self-love tattoo on her chest. That's also a lie. A woman refusing to identify as a woman because hairstyle, to be very specific, is not an act of self-love. It's toxic and unhealthy. Not only is she lying about what she is, who she is, what she struggles with, and what she doesn't struggle with, she's also lying about children. And that is disturbing. And none of you should ever hesitate exposing these people. You're actually doing more harm if you know what the truth is, but you're too shy to expose all the lies. Because what we're seeing today is no one is protecting the children. We're just giving puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones to children. Despite us knowing that it's not okay, despite us knowing it's harming them physically, mentally, we already have the evidence. What are we waiting for? It's not okay that we're debating if children can consent to adults ruining their bodies with medicine. It would be the shortest debate in the world if people weren't insane. But unfortunately, some people are insane. But they shouldn't be allowed to control the narrative. They shouldn't be allowed to control laws, the children themselves. Believe me, people who are for children transitioning are a very small minority. So that's exactly why the silent majority needs to become unsilent to save the children. Thank you so much for watching. If you want to see more content like this, remember to hit subscribe and the notification bell. If you want to support me in my channel, you can become a member, or I have my PayPal link in the description down below. Remember to follow me on social media. I love you and I cannot wait to see you in the comments. Peace out.